Now, Ask Dr. Love with psychotherapist, author, love and relationship expert Jamie Turndorf, PhD.
Hello again, and welcome to Ask Dr. Love Radio. I'm Dr. Jamie Turndorf, and it's my pleasure to be with you again today. Have you or someone you know been the victim of an online dating scam? While it's true that many people do find their life partners thanks to various online dating sites, millions of people are scammed out of house and home and heart. And in this show, I'm going to talk to you about how you can identify the fakes, freaks, and frauds so that you don't become another statistic who gets taken emotionally or financially. And then later in the show, I'm going to give you the questions of the week that I selected. And the first one's called, How do I confront my wife about claims that she cheated on me? And here I'm helping out a husband who's crazy with worry ever since a former friend of his wife told him that his wife cheated on him years ago. And he feels compelled to confront her, and he isn't sure how to do it. So stay tuned to find out my surprising recommendations for what he should and should not do. And in She Won't Take Me Back, I'm So Lost Without Her, I'm assisting a man who fell madly in love with a woman online. And he became suspicious of her intentions and confronted her, and now she won't talk to him. He's sick over having lost the woman who he believes was the love of his life. So stick around to find out my take on the real reason why he's so upset. And the third question of the week is, dated my best friend. And here I'm advising a woman who can't understand why her former boyfriend, who was her best friend for years, is now treating her like crap ever since they both agreed to break up and just be friends again. So stand by to discover the secret reason why he's treating her badly and what she can do to put a stop to this. And no show is complete without a reading between the sheets segment. And this week I'm talking about a question that's called About to Proposition My Surgeon. And I'm helping out a woman who has a mad and secret passion for her surgeon. She plans to rent a hotel room and send an anonymous note to him along with the room key, inviting him to come to the hotel and discover whom she is. Well, stick with me as I lay out the cons of her trying to con him into the sack. Alrighty, so let's get down to today's show, how to spot online dating freaks, frauds, and fakes. Now, if you've been tuning in for a while, you've probably heard me say that I was married for nearly 30 years to my childhood sweetheart. In the last year of his life, we both started receiving the oddest premonitions that he was going to die of an accident. We just didn't know when or where it was going to happen. Well, when we were vacationing in Italy together, he was stung fatally by a bee, and I came back to America alone. Now, after being widowed for a couple of years, those who know me began saying, Jamie, you got to do internet dating. They all knew the hours I work and that I live in the country, which is no man's land for a single woman. So finally I bit the bullet, and let me tell you, I endured the most outlandish experiences imaginable. Now, some of my stories are simply fun and funny. Others are gruesome and even terrifying. So I want my pain to be your gain. And I also hope that my willingness to share my experiences is going to help you feel less alone, ease the shame of millions who have been emotionally or financially played, and protect millions more from harm. So let me share with you some of my actual virtual dating roller coaster ride. Now, first of all, being a person who never does anything halfway, I joined every dating site on the planet. And I learned the hard way that online dating waters are infested with sharks. Okay, now maybe I was the target. I was really targeted more than the average woman because a lot of the guys said that they recognized my face from TV. But for whatever reason, I was bombarded by all kinds of frauds and freaks and guys looking for a nurse or a purse or worse. So, for example, there was this guy who described himself in our first phone call as a conservative, romantic man. Then on the second call, he starts drinking and his tongue soon loosened. And in no time he said, we've been polite with each other so far, but I sense you have a wild side. And he went on to explain that prior to his first marriage, he was into a particular practice. Well, the shrink in me had to ask what the practice was because I was taking notes after all. So he said golden showers. Now, in case you don't know what this is, it's the practice of urinating on someone or being urinated on. So I asked him if he was still into this practice, to which he replied, yes, I'm just looking for a willing recipient. And I responded, I think you mean a willing receptacle. Now, I thought that that was a hilarious comeback, but I don't think he did. And I just ended the call saying, you're looking for a peon. That's not me. Well, then there were guys who wanted to be dominated, and one was into S&M. And I figured this out when he asked to chat with me on the dating site chat room, and his dating chat room handle, I guess I should say in this case his love handle was whips and kisses. So that told me S&M. And I even had a brush with a foot fetishist who was hot on my heels. Now, these guys weren't dangerous per se, but there were guys who were very, very dangerous. So I started taking notes and organizing my experiences. And I have organized the scammers into two categories. There are the emotional predators and the financial scammers. Their tactics are similar, but not identical. So let me just start with the emotional predators. Now, I sadly discovered that there is an entire class of online daters who misrepresent themselves and their intentions. And these people include married people who are bored and looking for a virtual fling, or single men who are impotent, men and women who are intimacy and commitment phobics, and last but not least, there are those who have an axe to grind, like men who get off on emotionally seducing lonely single women. But men have also told me that they've had similar experiences with women who play head games. Now, how can you recognize an emotional predator? After several run-ins with these fakes, I've organized their tactics and their tales, and I'm going to list them all for you so you don't get hurt. All right. First of all, as a general note, a woman who has been married for decades and is re-entering the dating scene after divorce or the death of a spouse is probably going to feel comfortable the way I did in not rushing in and meeting the person quickly, not realizing how dangerous not meeting quickly can be, because not meeting allows you to have anonymous, faceless conversations. And this plays a terrible trick on your mind because the absence of visual cues operates much like the analyst's couch, in which it allows an unconscious transference to occur. So the faceless man becomes the blank screen onto which you pour your heart. And in this way, an instant intimacy is formed, and the bond feels like a continuation of the intimacy that you shared with your partner. And this creates this odd hit the ground running sensation, because suddenly you're in the emotional deep end, having forged an emotional bridge back to your husband and a continuation of the much missed intimacy that you shared with your partner. So you also want to beware of free dating sites, because these sites give easy access to every member. So someone living in a poor country can go to an internet cafe, set up a free profile, and have free access to you. So be wary also of people who say that they live far away, which provides a built-in excuse to not meet promptly, when in fact they never intend to meet at all. Not meeting promptly gives you time to form an emotional attachment, which is what they want. Because think about it, a person who's serious about forming a relationship isn't looking for someone who lives out of his or her area, right? Now, you also want to be wary of someone who avoids speaking on the phone, because many scammers won't get on the phone because there's a tell in their voice. For example, they might have an accent that would reveal that they don't hail from the country they say they're from. And sometimes, if there is no tell in the voice, they will get on the phone. Now, I noticed that many scammers will use the dating site's chat room feature without video. Now, they'll refuse to use the video feature because they don't want you to see that they aren't the person in their profile photo. And when you ask about this, they'll make up an excuse that their camera is broken or they haven't had a chance to go out and buy a new one. Many scammers will stick also to written exchanges because this gives them time to craft their letters. And they may also say to you that their membership is expiring, and they'll ask to communicate off-site using your email provider. Now, this is a ploy that they will use to hook a fish without having to pay for a membership, because many sites with paid memberships will allow a free trial period. And it's during the free trial that they hook you and redirect you to their off-site email address. And as you will soon discover, having their email address is a valuable tool if you know what to do with it. Now, I'm going to give you more on that in a minute. Now, because I was on so many sites, I started to spot canned written profiles that were being used on more than one site. Now, I don't mean that the same man had his profile on more than one site. I mean that the same written profile would appear on different sites, but that profile was linked to a different screen name and photograph. So watch for profiles also that are carefully crafted sob stories containing hooks that play upon your heartstrings. I also kept seeing profiles that contained identical phrases and stories like, I'm a God-fearing man, my wife died in a car crash, and I'm raising my child without my wife, who was a saint. And they'll say that they're looking for a God-fearing woman. And I suspect also that there's a company out there that's selling canned pre-written profiles for the scammers' use. And also be looking for profile inconsistencies and perhaps grammatical and spelling errors. For example, one man said that he was American, but I noticed that his profile was peppered with grammatical errors. And I told him, "You're a liar," to which he replied, "Why did you said that?" And then there was another guy who was a movie producer, and under the heading favorite film, he listed To Kill a Mockingbird. Now, another guy said he was a real estate developer. Get real, okay? Now, as for photos, I noticed that the scammers often post only one photo. Now, one photo is a clue that you're seeing a stock photo that was bought. And in general, a real person will have multiple shots of him or herself. Now, I asked one guy to send me other photos, and this was how I caught him. He tried to recoup himself by saying that the photo he posted isn't of him because he didn't want members of his community to know he was dating online. Now, another thing that's common with the emotional predator is the tendency to move quickly, to make premature declarations of love and promises of commitment, and to speak about fate and destiny. All right, now these are the emotional predators. Now, what about financial scammers? When dealing with financial scammers, everything I've said so far holds true, but the financial scammer isn't just out to steal your heart. He or she wants your wallet. Now, because their goal is to get money from you, they'll often position themselves as experts, like lawyers or stockbrokers or investors. This is a prelude to offering you an investment opportunity where they may ask for your banking information as part of an application. Now, one guy who pretended to be an attorney specializing in finance was such an arrogant sociopath it never occurred to him that I was going to check to see if he actually worked for the law firm he said he did. And I called, and there was nobody by that name working at that firm. Now, some financial scammers may position themselves as victims in need of rescue. Female scammers will often give sob stories that play on a man's rescue fantasies. They'll say that they're being abused, they're trapped in a war zone, or they need money for a sick child. And male scammers may say that they can't come to visit you because they're caring for an ailing relative or their house burned down. And they may ask you to send them money for a plane ticket or to help them out of their predicament. Now, in one of my stories, which I call Here Today, Ghana Tomorrow, I spoke with a man who pretended to be a licensed architect. And I noticed that many con men share an uncanny, almost psychic ability to sense exactly what words to say, often saying the very things that your spouse used to tell you, very personal things that they would have no way of guessing, all of which furthers the bond, even the sense that a deceased or departed partner has returned or sent his replacement. And the pain of such encounters is unfathomable. So, in the case of this architect, I was flabbergasted when he told me that he was French, like my deceased husband, and that he was born in Lyon, France, like my husband. Now, the man didn't know my name and would have had no way of knowing who my husband was. So I started typing to him in French. Now, his first tell was that he made grammatical errors that an educated man wouldn't have made. And now that I knew he was a fake, I started giving him a run for his money to flush him out and see what other tricks he had up his sleeve. So first I asked what state he worked in, and I checked and there was no licensed architect in that state. And then I dug for more inconsistencies, because an architect would be able to tell you what style of architecture he favors. So I asked him this question, to which he replied that he liked them all. So I said, but surely one style stands out as a favorite. Gothic, neoclassical, French Tudor. He couldn't name a single style. So then I asked him if he recalled the name of the architect who designed the Four Seasons Hotel in New York City. Now, any architect would have known the answer. Now, he pauses for a really long time. Obviously, he was doing an internet search, and after 8 minutes, he returned and said he couldn't remember. And then I said that I wanted to meet him, and he started fumbling and said he was shy. Now, the next trick he pulled was to disappear and reappear. Watch for this. Because each time the scammer does this, he's going to say that he has to go out of town for a funeral or to handle family business or to go out of town on business. And they'll often say that they won't have internet access, but in fact, they are on that dating site working other marks. Now, I found out how to verify whether the person is on the site without his or her knowing that you're checking. Now, if you go and view the profile of that person, it's going to let you know that he's online, but that person is also going to be notified that you viewed his page. But if you do a screen name search, you can tell if the holder of that screen name is online without his or her knowing that you checked. Or you could also look at the list of who favorited you or flirted with you and see if that person is online. Now, here's one last trick that I discovered. Remember I said earlier that if you have the scammer's email address, it's a tool you can use to turn to your advantage. Now here's how. With the Here Today, Gone Tomorrow guy, he told me he was going to London on business and said he'd email me from London when he arrived. Now when I received his email, I did a view source of his email. Most email programs offer this feature, and I saw that his email was sent from Ghana. Hence, Here Today, Gone Tomorrow. Now, last but not least, I want you to beware of the scammer who asks for your address or contact info under the guise of sending flowers or gifts, because once they have your info, it's easier for them to move in for the financial kill. So listen, my own brushes with every kind of freak and fraud and con man known to man will, I hope, ease your shame if you've been played and protect millions more from being played. Now, but I don't want you to give up. Be wary. You can find love online. Just keep one eyebrow raised at all times and don't prolong written or phone correspondences. Meet in person as soon as possible. And above all, have the courage to say sayonara to the madness and embrace being single. Do not settle for mistreatment, drama, and pain as an antidote to the terror of being alone. And consider that a Friday night date with a Netflix movie and a bubble bath ain't too shabby, because when you fall in love with yourself, you're no longer sitting upon the shelf. All right, I'll be back with you in a moment on Ask Dr. Love Radio. Hello again, and welcome back to Ask Dr. Love Radio. I'm Dr. Jamie Turndorf. It's my pleasure to be with you. By the way, I forgot to mention, I'm giving a talk. If you live in the Dutchess County area, in the New York area, this Saturday I'm going to be talking at the Golden Notebook at 5 o'clock. And it's going to be videotaped because I just signed with a large lecture bureau. They represent Deepak Chopra and Dr. Oz, and they've just signed me, and they want to have a live video of me speaking in front of an audience. So I'm going to be talking about the book that is coming out in January, my Hay House book called Kiss Your Fights Goodbye, which presents my proven conflict resolution method, shows you how to turn conflict into connection with spouses, family, friends, kids. So if you're in the area, I invite you to stop by. All right, now here's my quickie segment, and I want to just give you some statistics on internet dating. So first of all, there are 10.5 million widows in the United States, and an estimated 245 million women worldwide who have been widowed. And many of these women are going to engage in internet dating in the hopes of remarrying. And due to the war in Afghanistan, the number of young widows is climbing annually. And presently, a third of women who become widowed are younger than age 60. And the majority of these women will be turning to the internet to find partners. Now, keep in mind that whereas divorcees often have their guards up, the widow who was happily married for decades will often feel lost at sea without her beloved beside her. And as I discovered, the hunger to recapture a loving bond makes her particularly vulnerable to emotional and financial scammers. So if you've been heartbroken and are lonely, you too can be vulnerable to emotional predators and financial scammers, even if you're heartbroken from a divorce or you've just been lonely. Now, the fact is, millions of educated and successful professional women have been taken, and the romance scams perpetrated against widows alone comprise a multi-million-dollar industry. And I believe widows are so mortified to have been fooled that they bury their shame along with their stories. And according to Online Dating Magazine, 20% of Americans have gone out on a date with someone they met online, and that every year more than 280,000 marry someone they met online. And online dating has become a really big business, and one survey found that Americans are spending nearly $1 billion for online dating services. And it's not just for the young and the tech savvy, because research shows that it's just as popular with older adults. Now, I came across this really interesting piece of research. A study conducted by researchers at the University of Wisconsin, Madison, and Cornell University found that 80% of online daters lie about their height, their weight, and their age. And the older you are, though, the less likely you are to fib, according to that study. And a study commissioned by beautifulpeople.com. It's an online dating site where users are voted into the community. Now, I want to just examine the most frequent fabrications and how to spot them in others' profiles and why they're not worth including in yours. Now, so we said height. Both sexes tell tall tales, but men are more than twice as likely to literally stretch the truth. And 22% of guys and 10% of women in the beautifulpeople.com poll admitted to fibbing there. But the actual numbers may be higher because the UW Cornell study measured participants in person and found that more than 50% were untruthful about their heights in their online profiles, with guys fibbing significantly more. But who can blame them? Everyone knows women prefer tall men on the whole. And but it just doesn't work because eventually you're going to have to meet. Like one guy on one of the sites showed a picture of himself in a uniform and said that he looked the same as the photo. And then when I met him in person, it looked like he had a bowling ball under his stomach, which is fine, but don't misrepresent yourself. All right, now here's the second thing that people lie about: weight. They lie not necessarily because they're liars, but because they want to embellish themselves. So that same UW Cornell study found that women and men subtract 8.5 and 1.5 pounds respectively on average. And rather than be dishonest, just skip over the weight question. Just don't mention it. And here's another thing that people lie about: physique. The majority of men on dating sites describes themselves as athletic and toned. And obviously your eyes aren't fooling you. Those guys may be hoping that the description will. I remember one guy saying, "I'm really fit and in shape and I want a woman the same." And he also had a bowling ball under his shirt. So while it's tough if you're average or have an extra few pounds, if you have more to lose, just leave the section blank. That way you're not lying. Don't put slender if it's not your shape, because you're just going to be up for a big fall. Age: nearly 1/3 of the men admitted to lying about their age, and only 17% of the women lied. Fifth thing that people lie about is income. Men knock off 40% for a more accurate picture, and guys embellish by closer to 20%. But the point is that research confirms that men claim to bring home more bacon than they actually do. Another thing that we lie about: job type and title, falsifying their power. Men are very prone to do this, and women tend to downplay their intelligence and their success. We also see lies about lifestyle. So people will fake how far and wide they've traveled, for example. They will also lie about their hobbies to make themselves look more interesting and more involved. And they will lie about connections to celebrities. Can you imagine? And photographs. People will lie in their photos. They will actually send old photos that don't represent them. Sometimes they'll even show photos of other people pretending these are photos of themselves. Alrighty, so let's take a brief break and I'll be back with you in a moment on Ask Dr. Love Radio. Hello again and welcome back to Ask Dr. Love Radio. I'm talking today about how to spot online dating freaks, frauds, and fakes. And I told you some of my own outrageous experiences with the online dating scene following the death of my husband. Let me give you a couple of tweets before we go on to the latest columns. So, find out how to spot an online liar before your heart gets set on fire. Find out how to spot an emotional scammer before your heart starts to clamor. And before your finances go to hell, discover the financial scammer's tell. Listen up if you're coming in late. My earlier part of the show tells you all about how to do this, because online dating can be grating. And move on before you're the victim of an emotional or financial con. Keep one eyebrow raised and you won't be easily fazed. And beware of dating profile contradictions and you won't be having conniptions. And finally, you're not sitting alone on the dating shelf if you've fallen in love with yourself. Alrighty, so let's go to the columns. Here's the first one. How do I confront my wife about claims that she cheated on me? Please help me. I'm a mental wreck. Dear Dr. Love, my wife and I have been together for a total of 8 years, And there were a few rough spots where one or the other of us may have been going through something and our communication dropped off, leaving her feeling unappreciated or unloved. And there were three instances that stand out in my mind. I could see her gravitating towards other men who were giving her attention and the attention she was wanting. And I realized that this much is my fault for not being more sensitive to her needs at the time, but I figured it was just harmless flirting in return for being flirted with because the attention made her feel good about herself. Now, I don't really think she would ever cheat on me because we have both been cheated on in the past relationships we had, and we both had some trust issues to work through for the first few years we were together. Now, there were a few situations that made me uneasy, like for a short time, we would occasionally go to her friend's house and go to the bar with them. Now, her friend lived with her boyfriend and another guy that was her boyfriend's friend. And on one or two occasions, when I didn't feel like going to the bar, my wife went with them alone. Now she also said that she was going to stay the night at their house and for me to just stay home. Now I was a little uneasy about it, but I felt I should just trust her and not let my past relationships make me distrusting of her. My insecurities over being cheated on could sometimes cause stress in our relationship in the form of me being too controlling or not wanting to give her enough space, and I was working on changing that. After a few trips to the bar by herself, she told me that her friend, who was a serial cheater, was trying to set her up with the other guy, and she told her that she wasn't interested and wouldn't do that to me. Years later, however, another girl that used to be friends with my wife told me that my wife confessed to her that she had cheated on me once and that it was with this guy at her friend's house. She told her she regretted it and didn't want to lose me because of it. Someone else also told me that she slept with another guy on another occasion when she stayed the night somewhere, but this was a few years later. Now, the problem is that some of the details of the story just don't sound like her and don't make sense. But the basis could be true because both these times I had a very bad feeling she was up to something but didn't want to be the jealous boyfriend. Now, the problem is the people that told me these stories are not always honest and have had a falling out with my wife. So it's possible that they could be making it up, just trying to stir up trouble. But combined with the fears I had at the times these supposedly happened, I can't stop thinking about it. And I don't know if it's true or not. And as for the second guy she supposedly slept with, I messaged him online and asked him if there was any truth to it. And I told him that I wouldn't be angry with him and I wouldn't try to do anything to get even, that I just wanted to know the truth. And he said that it never happened and that he had no interest in her. But again, he could be lying, not wanting me to know that he slept with my, at the time, girlfriend. So I still don't know if there's any truth to the accusations, and I've thought about just confronting my wife about it, but she'll just get defensive and say I'm accusing her, and if she's innocent, I don't want to accuse her of something like that and hurt her. But whether it's true or not, I really don't see any scenario where she'll admit it. She might feel guilty, but will try to avoid conflict or making any waves in our relationship at all costs. And especially now, since it's a few years later and our relationship is going really well. I'm sorry that this was so long-winded, but I felt I really needed to give you the background and why I'm so confused about how to handle this. And my question is, what do I do? Do I try to talk to my wife about it and just be careful of how I word things so I don't come across like I'm railroading her? And I also don't want her to think I'm taking someone else's word over hers. But she does have more reason to lie, and I can't go on not knowing the truth. So please help me. I need some way to show her. I just want to know the truth so we can talk about it, heal, and move our relationship forward. And I also want to make sure to stress to her the importance that she be honest and tell me if she did anything. So what should I do? And thank you so much in advance, and I really hope I get a response because I need an unbiased, experienced outsider's opinion. Signed, cheated on, question mark, K. Okay. So I'm really glad that you reached out and you asked me for, advice with your relationship. Now, from what you say, not knowing whether or not your wife cheated on you is what's driving you most crazy. And you seem to think that it would be fine, that you would be fine with her admitting to infidelity, just you want full emotional disclosure. But what if you already know the truth, that nothing happened? And what if what if nothing happened and now you go start stirring up a can of worms and create a bigger mess? So what I see is that your wife behaved very honorably with you by telling you that her friend was trying to set her up with this other guy and that she refused. Now, reporting this to you is not the behavior of somebody who cheated. Now, on top of all this, you told me that the person who gossiped about your wife is an ex-friend. Now, clearly that person has destructive intentions. Now, what is her motive in telling you this? Does she want to break you up and have you for herself? Now, when I listen to what you say, you sound convinced that she cheated on you. And you seem to think that if she just admitted it, you would be able to heal and move your relationship forward. Now, I highly doubt that. Because if she admitted that she did cheat, you would feel even more mistrustful of her. You'd be haunted with the idea that if she lied before, she could lie again. I've heard that 1,000,000,000 times, really. So before you go off half-cocked and start asking her to come clean, let's do a little soul searching. Let's focus on you. Now, the first thing I want you to ask yourself is why this question is rearing its head now when your relationship is so good. Now, in other words, why is your unconscious stirring this pot at this time? Now, just so you know, I want you to know many people become terrified when things are going well in their relationships. It's as if they're waiting for the other shoe to drop, and they get nervous when things just feel too good to be true. And sometimes our unconscious will actually force the shoe to drop. So in your case, bringing up this accusation when times are good could be a way to force that shoe to drop. Now, remember you said that you have a problem with jealousy. So I'm wondering if good times make you anxious. So let's first trace back the origin of your jealousy. What happened to you as a kid? Who cheated on whom? Who betrayed whom? Did you experience a happy time in your childhood followed by a very painful event? If that's so, then your unconscious mind may well have been programmed to think that nothing good lasts and to teach you to brace yourself to expect bad things to follow good times. So it's possible that your mind is fixing to fulfill that familiar pattern without your knowing it by creating a war with your wife. Now, whenever we feel a pressure or a sense of urgency to act, it's generally because we're being driven by a trauma from childhood. The urge to act is actually aimed at getting rid of the pressure, the emotional pressure that's building. And when we act, it temporarily releases the pressure. So if you can identify the actual trauma, you're going to understand the pressure and where it's coming from, and then that pressure should subside without your having to do or say anything vis-a-vis your wife. Now, in the event that you decide you have to talk to her, then put the problem on yourself. So talk with her about the real origin of your fear of abandonment and mistrust and jealousy. And if she hears that you own your problem, she won't be as likely to feel blamed or railroaded. And then you could tell her about the person who brought you the gossip. Speak about your reaction to what was said. Tell her what old scar has been awakened by what that person brought to you, right? So what you would be saying is, that person told me this story, and this is the old scar that opened up for me, by giving her a real example of a story from your life, like so-and-so said and did this, and it made me feel afraid, and give her the details. So by discussing your early trauma, that was the emotional trauma that was left in the wake of the scar, she's going to hear that you're owning your problem and she's not going to feel attacked. And this is going to also evoke a feeling of empathy for your pain and a wish to reassure you rather than get her back up. Then you could ask her, if something did happen years ago, would you feel free to tell me about it? And if you formulate it in that way and you aren't accusing and you're just asking a hypothetical question, you have a better chance of not getting her back up. But the bottom line here is you need to focus on yourself and heal your old scar, which is the real origin of your jealousy. Because your jealousy is most likely a symptom of this earlier emotional injury. It existed before you got together with your wife. And I promise you, if you don't heal that old scar that's fueling your jealousy, it will rise up again and again. It'll always be looking for a place to call home. Because believe me, these kinds of wounds always find something to latch onto. Now, my book, Till Death Do Us Part Unless I Kill You First, it's soon going to be republished by Hay House under the title Kiss Your Fights Goodbye. It's going to show you how to uncover the old scar that keeps fanning the flames of your jealousy. And when you heal this old scar, the jealousy will go away. So I want to hear from you. Do this healing work I'm talking about. Let me know how you make out, because I've had thousands of people who have followed my method, healed the old scar, and then it stops rearing its head in the relationship. Okay, so let me say again that if you are in the Dutchess County area, if you're in New York, in the tri-state area, and you want to come and meet me in person, I'm going to be giving a live talk at 5 p.m. at the Golden Notebook in Woodstock, New York. I'll be talking about Kiss Your Fights Goodbye. I'll be laying out the essence of my conflict connection method, and I'll be taking your questions. So it's a great opportunity for me to meet you live and for you to meet me. All right, let me take a brief break, and I'll be back with you in a moment on Ask Dr. Love Radio. Hello again, and welcome back to Ask Dr. Love Radio. I'm Dr. Jamie Turndorf, and it's my pleasure to be with you. I'm talking about how to spot online dating, freaks, frauds, and fakes. Say that 3 times fast. And I have a question for you that really applies to this whole internet online dating scam world. So let's get to it. Dear Dr. Love, it's been approximately 2 days since I last ate or slept. I woke up 4 a.m. in the morning just to post this as my heart is aching in ways I have never felt before. I think I screwed up on one of the best things that's ever happened in my life. And before this, since a teen, I have been in and out of numerous relationships up until recently when I broke up with my ex, who I dated for 5 years. And the breakup was necessary because both of us were very unhappy, and sometimes we treated each other like S blank blank blank. Some months after the breakup, a friend of mine flew to Toga to marry a woman that he had dated online, and it was amazing as I had never seen him so happy. So I decided to try this online dating thing. Within a week of signing up, I had so many responses from women that I decided to switch off my profile. But in the midst of all those incoming interests, she caught my eye. So I decided to actually open her mail, and all she asked was how serious I was in finding a woman because she wanted to give me a try and she liked my profile. In 1 week, it went from casual chats to serious emails of love and devotion toward each other. I know this might sound weird, but we were professing our love for each other in ways that I had not experienced before, even though we had not met physically. We would spend hours chatting till 3 in the morning, and I would call her like 5 times a day and send countless texts during work hours. And it was the most amazing love I had ever felt in my entire life. How someone could actually make me feel this way thousands of miles away was beyond my understanding. My friends, workmates, and my family saw a huge change in me, and they kept on asking what is happening to me. And I told my best buddy about the woman I met online and how much we love each other, and he was excited, but he told me to take it easy because there are a lot of scams happening online. And this, of course, didn't worry me one bit, but as time went by, I started asking myself if this was too good to be true. And she only had one photo, and the number she gave me always had problems going through. And I would ask her why she didn't pick up my calls, and she would always respond with an excuse like she was at the market or at work or in a bus. And as days went by, my insecurities grew, and I stumbled upon an article from Dr. Phil's website about online scams and how to protect ourselves. And she only had one photo, and her phone number was on voicemail on most cases, and she was from a country where scam is a profession. So I started demanding more photos of her and her mom, since she liked talking about how loving her mom is. And to top it all off, I asked her to send me her ID. She told me that it's okay and she would send them because these things take time. At this stage, I had gladly volunteered to buy and send her an iPhone so we could communicate better, since she always blamed her phone for my failed calls. So my failed calls that I had made to her. So she was also excited about the phone, and she kept on constantly reminding me. I grew suspicious of this, and I started impatiently asking for those documents ASAP. And she'd always say that she had to go to the market and scan them, and then took time as she was working full time to support her mother, and that she'd get sick sometimes. And this raised a red flag to me. And by the time I was in so much pain because I could not believe the woman of my life was turning out to be a scam. And after 4 days without seeing much, I contacted the dating site and alerted them that my match was a scam. And I sent her a message: I don't believe you, and don't ever contact me ever again. I know this is a scam. And this was my last email. Now, she called me several times, and when I decided to pick up, all she could say is that she loves me and she will send me the documents. And I would hang up on her. My heart was tired and bruised. And I read how people got cheated so bad that it changed their lives. And the fact that she didn't have a Facebook page made online made me wonder. So I cut off all communication and drowned myself in work. Now, 4 days ago, I came home from work and, as usual, went into my office to check my mails for my personal clients, and that's when I saw it. And she had sent me an email with the subject, "Am heartbroken," and my heart just froze. And when I opened the email, she attached 4 photos of her and her mother and her ID to prove that she is real and that this is what she wrote. Now, she just says, and I'll synopsize it. "I'm devastated by the turn of events between us, you calling me names and saying I'm not real and that I'm a scammer and that you hit my integrity. And I didn't ask you for anything and I didn't request your support in anything. And relationships take time in building. And you requested that I send you something from about my true nature. And I would have done that if my mom's incident hadn't happened, and you would have received my ID and pictures long ago. And we started building a good thing. And then, if you feel something for me, I would understand your curiousness on things. And this is me at church. My picture, the second picture of me was back from church. And the third is a casual outfit. Good, have a good evening, and I hope to hear from you soon." Now you say to me, "I've tried everything. You've emailed her 20 times, sent her countless texts to her phone. She doesn't pick up your calls. She switches off her phone as soon as you make the first call, and you're so sorry for what you did to her. You run a family business, and it's beginning to show promise, and this doesn't even matter to you anymore, and you're tormented by what you did to her, and you can't sleep, and you're writing to me at this hour of the middle of the night, and your heart is in so much pain. I don't know what I'm going to do without her. I don't know what to do anymore. Signed, I'm a broken shell." Okay, so listen, I do hear how upset you are. And I know that online dating and long distance relationships are so hellish. They can be. Now, I hear that you are broken in half because you believe that you falsely accused this woman and you pushed away the love of your life. I hear that you think that. Because I'm not emotionally involved in your story, it's easier for me to view your story with detachment. And here is what I see. It seems to me that you fell for a dream. In 1 week, you didn't know this woman enough to truly love her, but your heart, which is so yearning for love, found it easy to pour all that love onto her. She was a faceless, voiceless angel of your heart's own creation, and you poured your heart onto that blank screen. Now, here's the thing. Her last letter to you said that she hoped to hear from you soon. Now, think about it. Based on that letter, if she had been real, she would have continued contact with you, accepted your calls, and even retrieved your iPhone. But she didn't do that. Why? Because I think she was busted, and her final letter was designed to cover her tracks. You didn't ruin anything, and you didn't destroy the love of your life. You are a dear, sweet, loving soul who is capable of great love. Now, from now on, choose to date someone who lives near you, someone that you can meet promptly. This is the key, because when we don't see someone and hear his or her voice, the unconscious mind plays tricks on us. We don't have visual cues, we don't have vocal cues, and it allows us to transfer all kinds of emotions onto that blank screen. And the blank screen effect allows the heart to project all kinds of desires and fantasies and yearnings. So when you meet someone in person, you keep it real. And no, you won't have the sense of instant love, and that's a good thing. Because what's good about your story is the fact that we know your heart is capable of feeling great love. Now you have to allow those feelings to be given to a real person. So heal, my friend, and have the courage to love again. All right. Now, I want to get to the reading between the sheets question because this is a very important question and I want you all to hear about this. Dear Dr. Love, I just read the letter in your archives from July 9, 2011, where a 27-year-old lady says she's in love with her surgeon. She said everything that I could say about my surgeon. I had a gastric bypass surgery on December 11th, 2012 to lose weight. And today is Saturday, October 5th, 2013, and I have lost 120 pounds so far. My surgeon is 60 years old and I am 58. I am a white female and he is a white male. He is divorced, has 4 adult children, 3 grandsons that he loves very much. And I'd love to get to know his grandsons and spoil them. And I don't want to take the place of their grandmothers, but be a special friend to them. His ex-wife lives in Florida. I live in Nashville. He lives in Brentwood, a rich area where many doctors and country music singers live. And I've been widowed since 1995. I started having feelings for my surgeon back in March of 2013, and I wanted to make sure he was not married, otherwise I would not pursue it. I weighed 360 pounds before the surgery. I'm down to 239. There are two other surgeons he works with in the practice, but he is the medical director. And like the other lady said about her surgeon, if mine was a real estate agent or a banker or a construction worker, I would feel the same way. Underneath that white coat, he is just a man like any other man, a smart man, but a man with wants and needs. So to cut to the chase, um, you want to you're madly in love with him. You said you're going to get a motel room for 2 or 3 nights and send him a room key. And you're not going to tell him who you are. You just want to have him show up to find out who is this woman who's madly in love with him. I think he's the most handsome and gorgeous man I've ever seen. I love his hair, his eyes. I love the sound of his voice. And you're learning to sew, and you've made him 3 ties to give him for Christmas. And I cannot believe that 2 women feel the same way about their surgeons, and I want to thank you for your time. Okay, listen, my dear, dear friend here, keep your undies on. I get that you have a mad passion for this man. I get it. And I hear that you plan to seduce him in a hotel room. I get that too. But I want you to know that approaching him in such a boldly sexual way could easily backfire. Why? Because you said you want a relationship. Now, if you approach him in such a balls out sexual way, you're sending the message that you only want him as a sexual partner. And while this may be flattering to him, it is certainly going to give him the wrong impression about what you truly want for the long haul. Plus, if you offer yourself up as a sex object, it's going to be hard for him to see you as anything but this. It's going to be hard for him to respect the entire package of who you are. Now, I know you've been heavy for a long time. And I know what being overweight does to a person's self-esteem. I know. Now, even though you've lost weight, you haven't lost your low self-esteem. Now, approaching him in this way smacks of feeling unworthy to me. You confirmed this theory when you said that you'd be willing to just have 2 to 3 hours of his time per week. I didn't read this part of the question because we're coming to the wire, but you did say that you'd be willing to take 2 to 3. Now, baby, I want you to have the entire enchilada. And if you want this man, go for it, but don't take crumbs. If you want him, let him know. Be honest. I'm talking about emotional disclosure. No games. Tell him how drawn you are to him, how attractive you find him, what you like about him. Then ask him if he has an objection to dating a patient. And if he says he's not permitted to date his patients, then make a joke and tell him he's fired. Be real. Share your heart. And then step back and let this man come to you. And please promise to let me know what happens, because I have a really strong feeling that you could form a lovely relationship with this man. No games. All right. So I wasn't able to read the third question because I got so overtime on how helping you to spot your online dating freaks, frauds, and fakes. I want you to take what I said to heart, but don't be frozen. Look for inconsistencies in profiles. Look for one photo. Look for the person being far away. Look for the person not wanting to get on the phone or delaying meeting. Look for all of these things. Look for instant declarations of love and commitment. I've spelled out every single thing you have to be aware of so that you will protect yourself from emotional players and predators and financial scammers. All right? And once again, I want to remind you that I'm going to be talking live at the Golden Notebook in Woodstock, New York. I'll be there at 5 o'clock. The event will be filmed for my new lecture bureau, and you will be able to ask me any questions you want. I'll be talking about my proven conflict resolution method that shows even the most distressed couples how to go from conflict to connection using my 10-step method. My method also works for conflicts with friends, family, relatives, co-workers, children. So I invite you, if you're in the tri-state area, come on up, come say hello. I always love meeting all my wonderful listeners and my audience. So that's all I have for you. And next week, I have a special guest, Robert Fulghum, the #1 best-selling author for 23 years running. He's a hugely successful author. We're going to be talking about love stories. So join me next week and have a great week. Be safe. And I'm sending you lots of love. Take care.